For any educator today, especially if you're in vocational training, the whole world of data regulation can feel like this incredibly complicated maze. And look, getting through it isn't just about ticking some compliance box. It's really about protecting your students, your school, and your reputation. So think of this as your guide, your map through that maze.
Okay, take a look at this number, 4,750,000 euros. Just let that sink in for a second. It's a figure that definitely makes you sit up and pay attention, right? But what on earth is it? Well, that massive number was the fine handed to Netflix. And you might be thinking, okay, that's big tech. What does that have to do with me? But that's the thing. It's a huge warning sign for everyone, and that absolutely includes educational institutions. It just goes to show you the financial stakes for getting data regulation wrong are just incredibly high. So, to make sense of all this, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with why this is such a costly maze to begin with. Then we'll try to untangle that web of regulations. After that, we'll talk about why this is about so much more than just rules, and then explore how we close the skills gap with a practical solution. All right, let's dive into Section 1, a costly data maze. Because the vocational education and training sector, what we call VET, it actually faces this really unique set of challenges that puts it, directly in the regulatory crosshairs. I mean, just think about it. VET providers have to juggle this super intricate web of rules. You've got GDPR, the Digital Services Act, and the AI Act that's just around the corner. Plus, you're often what's called a joint controller with your edtech vendors, which means you share the legal responsibility. So you have to do these complex data protection impact assessments, or DPIAs, and make sure that any data you send to the cloud is secure, especially if it's going overseas. It's a lot to manage. So that brings us to Section 2. Let's try to demystify some of that legal jargon, okay? We'll break down the key EU frameworks that you really need to have on your radar. First up, the big one, GDPR. You've all heard of it. This is the EU's main privacy law. And for a VET institution, it basically means you have to have a solid, lawful reason for processing any kind of personal data. A classic example? Handling what's called special category data, like a student's disability accommodations. That requires extreme care and a very clear justification. Now, just when you think you've got GDPR figured out, here comes the next layer, the EU AI Act. This is on the horizon, and it's going to directly impact educational tools. So if you're using what's considered a high-risk AI system, say an automated platform that grades student essays, you're going to need documented proof of how you manage risks and make sure the data is high quality. This slide actually does a great job of showing the difference. See, GDPR is all about protecting the person's data, like keeping their private records secure. The AI Act, on the other hand, is about making sure the AI system itself is safe and fair, like checking the algorithm that's doing the grading. They're really two sides of the same coin, both aimed at protecting students in this new digital world. Okay, Section 3. Here, we're going to move beyond just the legal stuff, because honestly, this isn't just about avoiding fines. It's about something way more important, trust. We're talking about the ethical side of data privacy. I absolutely love this analogy. Think of it as seatbelt compliance, right? You don't build a car and then try to bolt on a seatbelt at the end. It's a fundamental part of its design from the very beginning. And that's exactly how we need to think about privacy. It has to be privacy by design, built into your systems from the get-go. And here's why that is so critical. A student will lose trust in you way faster over an ethical data issue than they will over a simple tech glitch. Things like hidden algorithms profiling them, or if data from the learning management system is misused. That kind of thing does lasting damage to your reputation. So it really all boils down to this question. Is your data plumbing secure? Think about it. Student data is flowing through your institution's pipes all the time. Are those pipes sealed against leaks and breaches? And, maybe just as important, do you have filters in place to remove things like bias from your data? Your whole system has to be sound. Now, all these challenges we've talked about, they actually bring us to a really big opportunity. And that's what Section 4 is all about, closing the skills gap. This is about turning what feels like a burden into a real advantage for both you and your students. Let me ask you this directly. The trainees leaving your institution, are they actually ready for a workplace that completely runs on data? Do they really understand how to handle it safely, ethically, and effectively? I think for a lot of them, the honest answer is probably no. And look, the data totally backs this up. These Eurostat figures show that a staggering 45% of people in Europe lack even basic digital skills. That's not just a statistic. That is a massive gap between the skills people have and the skills that employers are desperate for right now. This is where vet providers can be absolute game changers. By weaving data literacy right into your curriculum, you're not just teaching compliance, you are giving your students incredibly marketable skills. The ability to look at data, spot bias, and follow workplace rules. You are literally making them more employable. So, the big question is, how do you do it? How do you build this capability? Well, that leads us right into our final section, which is all about the solution. It's about finding a clear path from all this confusion to a real sense of clarity and control. A really effective workshop or training program should focus on three simple things. First, it's got to help your team navigate all those complex rules. Second, it needs to help them develop truly ethical data practices. And third, and this is key, it has to show them how to implement practical, real-world solutions. And we're not just talking about high-level theory here. This is about getting your hands dirty, learning how to actually draft a DPIA, how to map out where your data flows, how to propose controls to lower your risk, and how to really embed those privacy by design principles we talked about earlier. Here's one last analogy for you to really make it stick. Think food label transparency. When you pick up a food product, you look at the label and you know exactly what's inside. Your data policies should be exactly the same, totally clear, transparent, and telling students precisely how their data is being used. That's how you build trust. So at the end of the day, the goal is to just shift your whole perspective. This isn't just a list of annoying rules you have to follow. It's a genuine chance to turn a regulatory burden into a strategic opportunity. An opportunity to build trust, boost the quality of your programs, and truly set your students up for success. So I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. A lot of institutions review their data strategy once a year. But in a world where tech and regulations are changing almost daily, you really have to ask yourself, is that annual check-in, is it really enough to keep pace?